Welcome back. Thank you so much again for joining us. 2 sittings of the National Assembly had to be postponed yesterday after parliamentary staff occupied the gallery. Of the disruption of the House as part of ongoing strike action by NEHAWU, the workers want an agreement with Parliament on the payout of their performance bonuses. Let's discuss this a little bit further. Joining us from our Parliament studio is the Secretary to Parliament, Gengezi Mgidlana. A very good morning to you. It's a huge pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Good morning, Ayanda. Good morning to the viewers.
So we know in general the bonuses are the bone of contention, the discussions there about deadlocked. But what specifically about the bonuses is the sticking point? What is that insurmountable issue that has led to this point?
Well, Ayanda, I think it's important that we go to the history of this particular issue. That at the beginning of the year, we reached a 2-year agreement with NEHAWU. And that agreement was supposed to last up till 2017, agreeing on a wide range of issues, including the payment of performance bonuses. And the performance bonuses in this regard were going to move from a 70% to 100% of the monthly salary, which they signed and agreed upon, and we were implementing that. In the middle of implementing that agreement, they then put forward a new proposal in the last 3 weeks, basically, saying they would want the payment of those bonuses to occur on the basis of an annual package, which, after much deliberation and pointing out a number of issues to them, that the budget of Parliament was based on the monthly salary, we acceded to that in principle and said, let's move to that particular situation over time, taking into consideration the finances of Parliament. We then, after having agreed with the union on those bases, appointed teams to look at this particular issue. And I must hasten to say that that agreement was facilitated with the involvement of NEHAWU National, the involvement of our executive authorities who were assisting in resolving the issues. Now we are at a point where we are saying, we are moving on the implementation of your total package payment of the performance bonuses over a period of time, taking into consideration the finances of Parliament. We hear from NEHAWU saying, well, they want that to be paid now, and they don't care where the money is coming from, and which we are saying, well, South Africa is in a particular economic state. Parliament is not immune to that. It's part of the state. The Minister of Finance has called on all of us to tighten up our belts and make sure that we live within our means in this regard. So we have got to act in a responsible manner. And we have heard statements that say we don't care about that.
Yeah, in fact, that's exactly where I want to. That's where I want to interject now. I'm going to quote from NEHAWU's branch chairperson, Thembi Sotembe. He's quoted as saying, tomorrow, he was saying this yesterday, so tomorrow would be today. Tomorrow we need to up our game. I don't care if they call the police, close quote. Are you prepared as Parliament for any eventuality?
Well, we have said to our colleagues in NEHAWU that do not engage in acts of criminality. Parliament is a creature of statute, of the Constitution. We make particular laws, and in this instance, there are 2 laws that are important. One, by a national key point, which means that a strike is prohibited, and the opposite of that is that a lockout is also prohibited. The second aspect there too is that we have the Powers, Privileges and Immunities Act. That act basically makes it illegal for anybody to prevent a member of Parliament from carrying out his duties. It also makes it illegal for anyone to prevent a staff member supporting a member in performing his or her duties in that regard. So therefore, the actions that they are embarking upon are illegal. And the full might of the law in this regard must take its course. We are hoping that reason will prevail on NEHAWU and that they will be acting as law-abiding citizens. And must I add, Ayanda, that we have an interdict which has been issued by a court of law, which NEHAWU should take heed of that particular interdict and act within the law. We don't think it is a good thing when there's a difference of opinion for anyone to embark in any acts that are unlawful.
If I may interrupt you once again, how do we resolve that difference in opinion? Where to now? Are there any further concessions that can be made by Parliament?
Well, in this regard, a resolution must be found by both parties. Parliament has shown that it can move. We have moved from the interpretation which we have signed upon both parties of looking at issues on a monthly basis to annual basis, which was a very big move that we made. We think the union must come to the party. It must stop a situation of putting ultimatums on the table and running away if they don't have their way. They must show that they understand the situation of South Africa, because this is not an issue about Parliament. It's an issue of the country being in a particular state and all of us acting responsibly. And the union is called on to play its part in this regard.
There's been a number of goings on in the parliamentary precincts that has caught the headlines of South Africa across the provinces. The vetting, the re-vetting of some of the employees in Parliament, one or two of them going to the media saying they're not happy with that. It caused a little bit of tension. And then, of course, the fees must fall protest, where we saw students gather in their numbers and storm the parliamentary precinct. In fact, do you think that there has become an attitude of irreverence, I suppose, of Parliament and parliamentarians, and that's why we're seeing the magnitude of violence and disruption as displayed by NEHAWU?
Well, we think these issues that you are citing are different. Firstly, the issue of vetting is a matter that is there in the conditions of service. When we advertise our posts, we say your appointment is subject to you being vetted. It's there in our policies. We have been doing it over time. We are not the only state institution that does that. There are many other state institutions that does that. And on our part, in our discussions formally with the union, there is no matter that has deadlock in that regard. They have asked issues of clarifications, and we have dealt with that. Then the second issue, which basically is about the students having come to Parliament. Parliament has indicated that it welcomes people bringing issues as per the Constitution to this particular august body, because it is a right and relevant body to deal with these issues. However, we have been concerned about the manner in which some of the things have occurred, which has given rise to perhaps actions that South Africa has found regrettable. And we as Parliament have also then said we need to have a look at the manner in which we handle some of these matters, so that they don't lead to acts of violence that have characterized some of these particular events. But I must hasten to say that Parliament receives a lot of petitions in a year. We receive a lot of marches in a year, and those marches are peaceful, they are organized, and we encourage them, because Parliament must come to their own, in fact, citizens of South Africa must come to their own Parliament to raise their issues. So that is a correct thing to do.
National Assembly Speaker Baleka Mbete, speaking yesterday, said that police will be called in if needs be, if there are any further disruptions today, and that perhaps a little bit of extra time will have to be allocated so that what was not gotten round to yesterday can be attended to a little bit later on in the year. Anything further you would like to add on those 2 points?
Well, what we want to say is that Parliament is fully prepared to deal with the issues. We are here to assure South Africa, we are here to assure political parties represented in Parliament and members of Parliament to say we will guarantee that the business that needs to continue does so unabated. And in this regard, if anybody is found violating the law in that regard willingly, then the law must take its course.
Thank you so much for your time. Secretary to Parliament Gengezi Mgidlana, always a huge pleasure to have you with us. So let's leave it there, at least for now. More in just a moment.